If you look at history, you will notice a pattern that has destroyed three major superpowers in the last 500 years, and today in 2025, America is following that exact same pattern, stage by stage. It feels like we are reading the same script that led previous superpowers toward destruction. In 1590, Spain was the world's richest empire. It controlled half the world's gold and silver. All of Europe was under its control. Its currency ran everywhere. But in just 80 years, it went bankrupt and never recovered again. In 1914, Britain was the greatest empire in human history. It was said that the sun never set on the British Empire. The pound was the world's reserve currency. In just 40 years, this entire empire was finished. In 1991, the Soviet Union was a superpower. Nuclear weapons, global influence, and satellites all over the world. All of this ended in just 900 days. And not from any war, but from economic implosion. So, 3 times, 3 major superpowers collapsed in exactly the same way. And here is what should terrify you. America has already completed 5 of the 7 stages. It is following exactly the same pattern as the old superpowers. Today's video will tell you how superpowers are destroyed, why every superpower thinks it is different, and why the math says America's turn has now come. Before understanding the pattern, you need to understand what imperial collapse actually means. Not in books, but in reality. What does it mean when a superpower is destroyed? Imperial collapse does not begin from war or military defeat. It begins from economic exhaustion. Superpowers spread themselves beyond their ability to maintain. Military bases in 150 countries, wars on multiple fronts, promises they cannot keep. In the beginning, the downfall is not visible to anyone. The currency is working, the military is winning wars, and the government is fulfilling promises. But behind the curtain, much is happening. Resources are misallocated, productive capacity shrinks, intelligent people leave the country. And then comes acceleration. Your allied countries start switching sides, enemies test the boundaries, the reserve currency status begins to end. And suddenly those advantages that made you powerful become vulnerabilities. Your currency, which everyone once wanted, starts coming back. Your military spread across the world becomes unsustainable. Your promises, which were once a guarantee of strength, become hollow words. These are not just bookish things. This is exactly what happened with Spain, Britain, and the Soviet Union. And it happened because they made exactly the same decisions that America is making today. They thought their power was permanent and refused to accept reality until the collapse reached its peak. So, let's see how all of this happened in exactly the same way, 3 times. Let's start with Spain first. After Columbus discovered the Americas in 1492, Spain became the first superpower. It captured the Aztec and Inca empires and then the world's largest gold and silver mines. By 1550, Spanish ships were bringing 200 tons of silver every year to Spain. By 1600, this reached 400 tons. Spain controlled the entire money supply of Europe. Spanish reals were the global reserve currency. Everyone wanted to buy Spanish silver. And this is where the pattern begins. When a country controls money, it believes it is now invincible. King Philip II, who ruled from 1556 to 1598, was the world's richest monarch at the time, who put all the money into the Spanish Empire. Stage 1. Military overextension. Spain was fighting wars everywhere, against the Ottoman Empire in the Mediterranean, against France and Italy, against Protestant rebels in the Netherlands, against England's navy, and in the Philippines and the Americas. By 1580, Spain had armies on 4 continents and their expenses were enormous. Half of Spain's revenue went to the military, and even that was not enough. Stage 2. Currency debasement. The Spanish government could not pay its bills from taxes alone, so they did what every failing empire does. They started mixing copper into silver coins. A coin that should have been pure silver first became 50% copper and then 75% copper. The face value remained the same, but the real value fell. By 1600, Spanish silver coins had barely any silver in them. Businessmen stopped accepting them at face value, and prices shot through the roof. Stage 3. Debt spiral. Spain borrowed from Italian bankers, German bankers, and from everyone who was willing to lend. In 1557, less than 20 years into King Philip's rule, Spain declared bankruptcy. They defaulted on their debts but still did not stop borrowing. In 1560, Spain went bankrupt again in 1575, and then in 1596. So, 4 bankruptcies in 40 years, every time they promised reforms, but every time they went back to borrowing. Stage 4. Loss of productive capacity. This is the thing people do not understand about Spain's collapse. They had all the gold and silver in the world, and that is exactly what destroyed them. Because when you have unlimited money, you stop producing. Why grow food when you can import it? Why build ships when you can buy them? Why innovate when you only have to spend? The Spanish elite considered every form of work beneath them. As a result, manufacturing collapsed and agriculture stopped. All the money went into importing things from other countries. The gold and silver that came from America all went into paying for French wine, Italian silk, and luxury goods. Spain became a passage. Money flowed through it and moved on. By 1600, Spain was producing almost nothing. It was entirely dependent on imports and dependent on silver for payment. And when the silver mines started running out and their production halted, the entire system collapsed. Stage 5. Social decay. Along with the failing economy, crime increased. The streets of Madrid filled with beggars. Productive people started emigrating. The best minds went to France, England, and the Netherlands, which were building and growing at the time. Spain was left with only bureaucrats, soldiers, and priests. No one was creating wealth. Everyone was only consuming. By 1640, Spain had lost Portugal. By 1650, it had lost the Netherlands too. By 1700, the Spanish Empire had become an empty shell, large on the map, but economically dead. It went from superpower to secondary power in less than a century, and they never recovered. Spain today is a small European country, pleasant, cultured, but completely irrelevant on the global stage. The home of the conquistadors is today a tourist destination. This is what imperial collapse looks like. Now, let's move 300 years forward. 1900. Britain, the empire on which the sun never set. At its peak, Britain ruled over 25% of the world's land and 400 million people. The pound sterling was the global reserve currency. Every major trade contract was made in pounds. Every central bank held British bonds. London was the world's financial center. And just like Spain 300 years earlier, they too believed all of this was permanent, but they were already following the pattern. Stage 1. Military overextension. By 1900, Britain's reach was everywhere. India, Africa, the Middle East, China, the Pacific, the Caribbean. Their armies were on 6 continents and the cost was enormous. And when World War I started in 1914, Britain had a choice: stay neutral and let Europe be destroyed, or bankrupt itself to win the war. They chose to fight. World War I cost Britain $40 billion, equivalent to $1 trillion in today's terms. They borrowed from everyone, mostly from America. By 1918, Britain owed America billions of dollars. The creditor had now become the debtor. Stage 2. Currency debasement. The pound sterling was supposed to be backed by gold, but the war had drained Britain's gold reserves. They had given gold to America for weapons, food, and supplies. By 1920, Britain's gold reserves were half of what they had been in 1914, but they still tried to maintain the value of the pound. In 1925, they returned to the gold standard at pre-war rates. The problem was that the pound was overvalued. British exports became very expensive. Manufacturing fell, unemployment rose, and the government had to keep interest rates high to defend the currency. This destroyed the domestic economy. By 1931, they could no longer hold it. Britain abandoned the gold standard. The value of the pound fell 25% overnight. Stage 3. Debt spiral. Britain had not yet recovered from the debt of World War I when World War II began. Another $120 billion in expenses. More borrowing from America. By 1945, Britain owed America and Canada more than $30 billion, more than Britain's entire GDP. The war was won, but the empire was finished. They could not defend it, could not afford it, could not maintain it. Stage 4. Loss of empire. In 1947, Britain lost India, its crown jewel and the most profitable colony for 200 years. Over the next 20 years, they lost everything. By 1970, the British Empire existed only in history books. Stage 5. Currency collapse. The pound kept falling. In 1940, £1 was worth 4.03. In 1950, it was 2.80. In 1970, it was 2.40. By 1980, it had fallen to 2.30. And today, it has fallen to 1.27. The global reserve currency became a regional currency. Britain tried to maintain a permanent seat on the UN Security Council, nuclear weapons, and a special relationship with America. But everyone knew the truth. They were now a lost superpower, a museum of lost glory. The British Empire collapsed, and it never came back. And now, let's look at the most recent example, the Soviet Union, which ruled from 1945 to 1991. After World War II, the USSR emerged as a superpower. They had nuclear weapons, massive military control over Eastern Europe, and satellites in space. They were convinced that they were the future, and that communism would bury capitalism. The Soviet model would dominate. For 45 years, they competed with America. They matched America militarily. More tanks, more missiles, more troops. But in the background, their economy was being destroyed. Stage 1. Military overextension. The Soviet Union spent 15 to 20% of its GDP on the military, 3 times more than America's spending. They had to match American technology, American reach, and American alliances. They were in Afghanistan, supporting Cuba, supporting Syria, Vietnam, North Korea, Angola, and Ethiopia. Wherever America had influence, they had to get in too. The cost of all this was unsustainable. Stage 2. Economic stagnation. In the 1970s, the Soviet economy stopped growing. Oil revenues kept them afloat, but nothing else was working. Factories were producing junk, farms were failing. Technology had fallen years behind. By 1980, the Soviet Union was importing grain. A country that had some of the world's best farmland could not feed itself. Why? Because central planning does not work. Because innovation dies under control. Because when there is no incentive, no one produces. Stage 3. Currency collapse. The ruble was never a real currency. It could not be exchanged internationally. Even Soviet citizens did not trust it. They used dollars when they got the chance. The government had to buy imported goods with gold and oil because no one wanted rubles. By 1985, oil prices fell. Soviet gold reserves were running out. They were running out of real money. Stage 4. Loss of empire. In 1989, the Berlin Wall fell. Eastern Europe was gone. Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Romania, East Germany, all left Soviet control within 1 year. The satellites that gave the Soviet Union strategic depth disappeared. The Soviet government could not stop any of this, and their treasury was empty. Stage 5. Complete collapse. On December 26, 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed. From the Berlin Wall to complete collapse was just 900 days. No war, no invasion. Just because of economic crisis. The military could not be paid. The government could not function. The ruble became worthless. A superpower with 30,000 nuclear weapons collapsed due to internal economic failure. Exactly the same pattern. Overextension, currency failure, debt, loss of empire, and finally collapse. Now comes the part that will blow your mind. America is following exactly the same pattern, stage by stage, and I will show you how. Stage 1. Military overextension. America has over 750 military bases in 80 countries. Its soldiers are in 150 countries. They are spread there to defend Europe through NATO, to defend Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines, to fight in the Middle East, and to counter China and Russia. America's military budget is $850 billion, more than the next 10 countries combined. But American weapons are aging, recruitment is down, and it has made commitments it cannot fulfill. If China attacks Taiwan, if Russia invades NATO territory, or if Iran closes the Persian Gulf, America cannot handle all of these simultaneously. America is overburdened, just like Spain, like Britain, and like the Soviet Union. Stage 2, currency debasement. In 1971, Nixon closed the gold window. The dollar became a pure fiat currency. Since 2000, the money supply has increased by 400%. Since 2020, America has printed more than $6 trillion. The dollar has lost 98% of its purchasing power since 1971. America is not mixing copper into silver coins like Spain did. It is just printing unlimited paper. The mechanism is different, but the result is the same. Stage 3, debt spiral. America owes $36 trillion. This is 120% of GDP. Interest payments alone are reaching $1 trillion per year. It is spending more on interest than on defense. The economy runs at a deficit every year. In 2024, this deficit was $1.8 trillion. When debt matures, it takes new debt to pay off old debt. This is the very definition of a debt spiral. Spain defaulted 4 times. Britain borrowed until it collapsed. The USSR ran out of money. And America is on the same road. Stage 4, loss of productive capacity. America no longer makes things. It financializes and consumes but does not produce. Its manufacturing base has hollowed out and shifted to China, Mexico, and Vietnam. America imports more than $800 billion worth of goods every year. It is dependent on foreign supply chains for everything: medicine, electronics, steel, even military components. Just as Spain became dependent on imports while silver flowed out, America is equally dependent on imports while dollars flow out. Stage 5, social decay. Trust in institutions in America is at an all-time low. Crime is rising. Homelessness is exploding. 100,000 Americans die from drug overdoses every year. Intelligent people are leaving America for other countries. Fertility rates are collapsing. Political chaos is visible. Americans cannot agree on anything, cannot fix anything, cannot build anything themselves. The signs of collapse are everywhere, but everyone is pretending that everything is fine. But nothing is fine. America is at the 5th stage. The Soviet Union had reached stage 5 before its complete collapse. Britain too. Spain lasted a little longer, but the pattern was the same. Stage 6, loss of reserve currency status. This happens when allied countries start to diversify, when trade moves to other currencies, when dollars start coming back home because no one needs to hold them anymore. And we are already seeing these signs. BRICS nations are developing alternative currencies, central banks are buying gold, China and Russia are trading in yuan and rubles. Saudi Arabia is accepting yuan for oil, so the situation is critical. Stage 7, total collapse. Not a gradual decline, a sudden collapse. The Soviet Union went from superpower to non-existent in just 900 days. Britain lost its empire in 20 years. Spain took a little longer, but the results were the same. When the reserve currency fails, when debt becomes impossible to service, when the military cannot be funded, the collapse is not graceful. It is sudden and catastrophic. And every person who thinks this can't happen here learns the same lesson that every empire learns. 3 empires followed this pattern: Spain, Britain, the Soviet Union. Each one thought it was exceptional. Each one thought it was different. Each one thought these rules did not apply to it, but they were wrong every time. The pattern does not care about exceptionalism. The pattern is mathematical. You cannot always spend beyond your means. You cannot maintain an empire without productive capacity. You cannot devalue your currency without consequences. You cannot complete stages 1 through 5 and escape stages 6 and 7. The sequence is locked. The only question is timing. Maybe America has 10 years, maybe 5, or maybe even less. But the pattern says collapse is coming. And when it comes, it will not be slow. It will be sudden. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video. Take care of yourself. Goodbye.